Hello everybody, it's Codeberry Club live stream, and today we are going to talk about TypeScript and TypeScript configuration, about strict null checks, and today our speaker is Alex Pardo. He is Chief Software Engineer from EPAM, and he will explain the topic and shows practical workshop related to the topic. Alex, hello.
All right. Thanks, Andre, for your warming welcoming. And hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, I'm Alex Pardo. You will be talking about TypeScript node checks, what, why, and how you could leverage it and benefit from this curious and great TypeScript compiler option. So as Andre was sharing, I am a professional developer since 2007. I am a Palmer since 2017. And recently, no longer than a year ago, this back December 22, got recognized as a member of Advanced Software Engineering Group and community in EPAM. And now I am a Chief Software Engineer level 1 since then. Right, so onto our topic. Uh, Imagine that you are working on your project, right? It's a TypeScript project going into our what of our tech talk. You work on the project, it's been deployed to production. Your happy clients are becoming to consuming it, just ship it new features. Though suddenly the application behaves weirdly, and you look on your dashboards, your SLO, error budget is burning very fast. Um, and then you scratch your head and ask yourself, what's going on? We just tested out well. It's out there in production now, but something is off. When you check on your logs, you see a measure that resembles this one we have on the top here. Cannot read properties of undefined when reading filter. So clearly there's something that should have been a array, which is not in production. So maybe your test didn't caught it, and not even your integration tests got it, and it's out there right now. So how to deal with it, right? And how could that have happened and went through production? So this is what we'll be tackling and assisting you to tackle today. Uh, so what is strictNullChecks, right? It's a TypeScript compiler option, and it defaults to false. So if you're not going there on your TS config and actively changing it to true, you're not benefiting from it. All right. And from TS docs, what is it about this compiler option? When it's false, no and undefined values, right, as well as types, are effectively ignored by the language, meaning that it can lead to unexpected errors only at runtime. That's the gotcha here. So you work it, you polish your application, you cover it with tests, but if by some chance you're not checking properly or you forgot to check if something is there or not, the compiler won't be telling you, and if you didn't test, you will only be caught at the worst time possible when your clients are consuming and trying to benefit from your end client product. All right, so for example here, consider this very simple code here, right? So we have an interface entity, which could hold either a person or an organization. Consists of basically two specific properties here, a name and optionally an age, right? So from the code here, it implies that when we have a person entity, it will have an age, right? When it's a company, it won't. Okay, so if we try to just log these in our log, right, showing what's the age, from a person, it's going to work fine, though for the other way around, you will get only a runtime error, right? So that's it. That's the strictNullChecks not being applied here right in front of us. Only at runtime, you would get that age here may not be there. It might be undefined because the interface tells so, but otherwise, the TS config and TS compiler won't tell you, and will just create your artifact and let it go through production. Right, so what are the problems when it's false, right? Again, it won't warn you when you are accessing a possibly null or undefined value. It will compile into JavaScript code, letting potential bugs slip into production. And when provoked, if that situation scenario of the value be nullable is provoked, you will get a runtime error. Your error bucket will burn quite fast if it's like on a very important endpoint from your application, and your client certainly will be unsatisfied. Your company may have some difficult situations to solve, and possibly you need to get a quick, let's say, bug fix out there. The sooner the better. But that's a difficult situation because you need to deal with every one situation whenever it happens. So very difficult to catch, and potentially may only happen in production environment at the worst time possible, right? So let's check more on this and see why, besides all of these downside effects, why we should be enabling strict node checks, right? Foremost, and for me, the most important is type safety, right? Yes, we have seen that and using and loving this programming language, so-called JavaScript, for more than 25 years now. It's everywhere, right? Though we know that types are not that strong when you're dealing with JavaScript code directly. That's one of the main reasons why TypeScript came to be many years ago from Microsoft. And the main goal of it is type safety. So if your TypeScript application is not leveraging strict node checks, we're mostly ditching all the benefits that type safety brings to us, right? And type safety will enable you more speed for development and catching issues. Problems are detected early. I wouldn't say even detected early because they do not come to be. They will be detected that you may be doing something that will throw an error in production while you are typing your code, right? So before at compile time, you will know whether some additional checks should be included or you need to create some type guards, for example. This will result in a better code on all levels, on quality, the reliability of your end user application. Your code will certainly be better readable because types will be there explicitly, and you know that if a property is set to be there, it will always be there. And when it's not, it will clearly tell you that you should look better and do some additional checks, and potentially and for sure reducing the cost of maintenance, right? For example, looking at the example that we saw in the beginning, that's something that happened in production level. There may be many other places which may be suffering from the same problem. And in that case, you need to catch each and every of those errors only in production. Very costly, very time limiting, right? You need to be seizing fires and fighting against your code base every time such a thing happens in production only, when you could have just prevented it to happen while you were writing the code. So certainly a lot of cost reduction here, besides boosting the team morale for sure, right? The team will be certainly more dedicated on writing new features other than firefighting on no check errors in production. And last but not least, it's a best practice. So we should all be doing that. And in fact, others have done it too, and have been in this situation where initially they began a project using TypeScript with strict node checks set as false. they start to fail on their knees because errors were continuously happening and bug tickets were popping out of nowhere. In projects that I myself have joined in the past, all the way back in 2017 through Trinity, and nowadays I am actively driving the same initiative on a project I am working on. There is a notable project here, an open source project, the VS Code repository. All the way back in 2018, they didn't have strictNullChecks. And from this issue number 60565, they began an initiative to enable it and slowly migrate everything to be strictNullChecked. And possibly after this talk, I hope you would be the next one to also have migrated your Typescript project to be strictNullChecked as well. Right? So without further ado, let's do it. Let's see how we can identify and start applying this property onto our projects. Right? So how will we get started? It all starts with a custom Typescript file config, right? It should extend from your, let's say, base Typescript config file. You may disable some things like, for this interim work, you won't be emitting an artifact, so you can enable the no emit flag in the compiler options. Obviously, the strictNullChecks should be set to true. And you may also benefit from setting strict property initialization. So if you're leveraging on classes, you don't let properties not being assigned even a declared time or into your constructor. So it also be of great assistance when dealing with strictNullChecks here. So I am recommending it here as well. And then you can leverage two other properties here, the files, where you will be gradually including more files on this array on your config whenever you null check or you want to null check errors of a given file, right? So then they will be there always, and in case someone does some maintenance on a file which is already null checked, running the compilation with this file here will prevent that any regression goes onto the code. And there are some cases when you may want to exclude files. So for example, test files, or maybe there's certain files in your project or modules which are too big to be refactored and have the checks fixed all at once. They may be really important files. So you may want to individually ditch them, maybe with some hackathon on your project, because there would be significant testing efforts to see and check everything. So you may consciously include certain files here, which will signal the team that, hey, this file here will need some careful attention. So you're just excluding, but certainly on your ticket system, you should have some tasks there to tackle each and every of those. All right, so this is the bare minimum of your custom TypeScript config to, well, get it started, right? Then you go through a very simple process. You add a file to the custom files property, right? You run a build with the nullchecks. It will show to you which are the errors that are popping there. You will fix. Then you run again the build, of course. They should be fixed. You rinse and repeat, right? So you do it until each and every files of your projects which have nullcheck errors, until all of them are fixed. Then at the end, you would certainly enable it on your main build DS config to then complete your process. And then you could finally remove this custom TypeScript file. Okay. All right. So let's check some example here. I will share my code editor here. I have a simple TypeScript file project here where I hope to share with you a few examples on how we can tackle it. Okay, so bear with me while I share the screen, and then we can get started. All right, Andrea, we will ask your help here enabling my screen. Yeah, thank you very much. So let's first navigate quickly here on this project structure, right? So it's a simple TypeScript file, no surprises here. The first example is dealing with native JavaScript methods, right? So first, let me show the build here. So we have my main build file, which you can see here. We do not have the strictNullChecks enabled. So let's run a build for this file here. All right, let's give it some time to build. Then we will see if we have any error whatsoever from this. Okay, so nothing wrong. It did create my artifacts here. So we should be good to go to production, right? Now, what if we run it with our nullchecks configuration here, which we have the same sample that I just showed you? Let's give it a try here. Right? All right, and we did got the errors here. Let's spec them to see what's going on. So the summary says it found 4 errors in 3 files. Those are the errors, so you would know where to get started, right? This is standard. And here are the errors. So let's start to tackle one by one. So we have in this file here, let's navigate to it, found is possibly undefined. Very indicative. And let's go. So the first thing when we have strict no checks, as we said, no undefined and your actual types, they are different, right? So if we navigate to the definition of the find method, it's a generic that's either T or when it finds, or it returns undefined. So that's what we need to deal with, right? In this case here, we have a very simple list for the purpose of, for example, we are finding a number which is 0, though we do not have it. And that's why. So we would have, then basically, there are many ways to deal with it. We could use the exclamation mark here, right? To tell, I just happen to forget the name of this operator. You could have add here a explicit guard. And then only then run your code. There are many options. So up to you. If it's something that should prevent from running, certainly you will wrap it around and leave. Or if it's something that you can run, you can certainly use this operator here on your code. You would have to understand on your case how to deal with it. All right, so hopefully we have fixed one issue. Let's see what's the next one. The next one is on the optional props example. Let's go there. So here we're importing an API response model. Let's see what we have here. So here we are mimicking a API response, something that came from a backend service that you consume. And you see here that it may have data or it may have an error. So you need to deal with both scenarios. And if you have data, you may have a player array, which has this interface here, with another optional property here, which unclear, at least at this point, in what scenarios the score would be missing. Let's go back at our code. We have a code here that computes players' total score. All right, so we get to the fall. Right, we want to filter out the cheater players. There is a logic here. But the point here is that data is possibly undefined as our interface is telling us, right? So potentially we could add here a check to see and ensure that API response data is an array. And if it's not, I will use it this way here. If it's not, we will return our default score here. Okay, we didn't get data, so there is no score. We assume it will be 0. Okay, then we have, if we got here, we surely have an array. TypeScript will stop complaining with us. Right, and the last one is that, again, the score property is missing from the player interface, right? Okay, so let's see how to do with it. Here, if it's missing, and here that there is a recommendation to you. So in our interface here, and I have seen this in many business and enterprise solutions, you have a single interface that you reuse for multiple purposes, right? So yeah, if you're willing to type really fast and go forward, yeah, you could certainly do that. Though if you can narrow down and benefit from the types, it would be better. So here, rather than one player interface, you could have maybe 2 or 3, because it seems that from our business logic here, when the player type is either a champ or newbie, it will have a score. And when it's a cheater, maybe the system will neglect its score. So certainly here we could have and separate here or divide this player interface into to have better types. So ensure that, for example, for newbie and champ, the score will always be present. And differently, when it's a cheater, there won't be a score there. So the type system then will be more rich, and your code also will be easier to maintain, I believe. So here we need to deal with it in this way it is. So if there is no score, we could nullish coalesce it to 0 and deal with it. Could be a way to solve this here, or using a ternary, whichever fits your coding practice. Right, and then we have the last error when we are dealing with non-nullable arguments. So here we have a similar case. We have a player class with a constructor. It expects the type and a string with the name. And here it shouldn't be nullable because we're right away changing it to uppercase. Though certainly if we pass no here, we will have some fireworks, right? So the compiler is already telling me that I shouldn't let it go through. The argument of type null is not assigned to parameter of type string, right? Emphasizing here how now with NullChecks, TypeScript is distincting each and every type. A string can only be a string, and null and undefined they are separated from everything. So we can deal with it. So here we could just define a name here, a cheater player, maybe just to for the sake of example. All right, so seeing that we got to the end of our errors list, let's try to run our build one more time. Okay, let's give it some time. And ideally, it should pass if I fixed everything correctly. All right, and it compiled. So, but the problem here, right, we did fix, though our NullChecks, we are not specifying here which are the files which are included. Well, in my case here, my project is very small, so I could just go through my main TS config, my base one here, and enable strictNullChecks. I would be done with my process. Though, what I would like to show you today is a tooling that we could use to get it started, right? Let's say that you are working on a very big project. You don't know whether you already have some files which are ready and null check it. So you could just add it in there to avoid regressions. And as you start fixing files, other ones may be automatically solved, lucky you. Then you could automatically add them there. So to get started, I will share another screen here. So Andre, I'll ask your assistance again. Let me share the other screen. So we checked on some examples. Now let's check on some tooling. Just go here to my other editor. All right.
I can see just
Sharing
presentation.
now.
Yeah, now I can
Yeah,
see.
I just shared the new file. All right. So this is a script that came out of that case when I showed you earlier about the VS Code work, right? So here, for our use cases, that one would only work with the VS Code uh, repository, so it has its specific code structure, which would not allow us to use on our own project. So I made a fork and made some change that would allow me to use on any project. There is a configuration file, which should be moved to a CLI parameter. So here it's just set to what's the name of my tsconfig file to use, right? Here I could define some skipped files if I wish, so something similar to the exclude clause on the tsconfig. And yeah, so the two comments it has, one is the index, which will print a list of files of all eligible files, which not only them themselves doesn't have any no check errors, but as well all the chain of imports it has also does not have. So let's get it started with this first script here. So let's just see I am on the right place. Yeah, I am. So let's call here node index, and I should go to my project. And my TS examples. All right, let's run this command and see what we get. This command will run, oh, it's already there. So it identified that each of these files here, they are ready. So it could be including it on the strictNullCheck tsconfig file, as we just fixed the errors. So now what we want from this tool is to have them auto included on our tsconfig file. So for example, let's just output here what is the content of my tsconfig file, right? And you can see there is nothing in there, only the main configuration. So now let's run the auto add and see what's going to happen here. So this tool will go through the list of files from your project and will start to compile each file individually. So this may take a while, especially if your project is big. I believe the benefits of it surpasses the time waiting here. So whenever a file is found to be null checked, it will auto include it on the files property of our specific Typescript configuration file. So we don't need to go and do this manual work ourselves, right? So it's finding there are no compilation waivers here because we just went manually through each and every of it. And at the end, we should go and refer back to the state of our TypeScript file. So let's see. We just finished. let's cat it over again, and there you go. So again, reviewing, we have this native.js methods index, where file or project has only 4 files, and all the 4 are here. Our index and interface are good. Interface didn't have any issue because there's actually no code there, just the interfaces. And our index from normal arts is also there. So that's it. It's auto included. And so the script can be used for that purpose. All right. So this is the tooling I wanted to show you. And in my project example here, I could just go ahead and enable it on my build and complete this initiative because all the errors are fixed. So I would be good to go to production. And yeah, I think that's it. We went through the content here and the process of enabling strictNullChecks on your project. We all know that there is, let's say, a parent property for strictNullChecks, which is the strict, which is a umbrella property which comprises of strictNullChecks and a bunch of other properties which your project could also benefit. And perhaps you could follow the same process to include and fix other type of compiler errors in your project. All right. So thank you, Andre.
Yes, thank you for the stream. And I think it's question time. Feel free to
All
post
right.
your questions to our chat under the video on YouTube. I have a couple of questions from my side. As I
Okay.
can see, you suggest to exclude tests from strict null checks.
Right.
Why?
Mhm. For speed's sake, yes, you could go ahead and also enable strictNullChecks on task files. Now, if you are in a situation that you are having many problems on production code, maybe dividing your efforts between task files and as well production files may slow down your process. So if you're in this situation, which I have been a few times already, you want to first tackle your production code first, and then yes, if you want to go all in onto fully, even your task being no checked, you can go ahead and do the same for your task files. I'm not against it, but it depends on how much hand and time you have to do it. But it would be great to include your task files as well.
Okay, we have questions in our chat.
All right.
Why was it about only strict null checks? Are other options is not no so important?
Thanks for your question, Sergey. Yeah, so the focus here was to deal with this one particular problem. So as I just mentioned at the end, yes, there is many other properties which you may benefit from enabling, for example, implicit, no implicit any, and many others which this strict umbrella configuration property also enable. I wouldn't recall any of the other compiler options here by mind. But yeah, you would benefit from enabling many others. Here we went through an example of how to enable strictNullChecks, which prevent a number of undesired bugs on your code. But yes, I would recommend enabling everything if you can. That you could, and I believe you could apply the same process here.
Okay, thank you. So we have common question, but let's talk about it. Could you name good resources to learn TypeScript and advise a path to switch from Java? What do
All
you
right,
think?
interesting question. So yeah, I also have some Java background. So let's see here. In my case, it was, well, getting started by doing it, right? The syntax is very, I wouldn't say akin to Java, but it's comparing to JavaScript, it's more Java-esque or C-sharp-esque based on my background, and especially C-sharp, right? And because it came out of Microsoft. So all you know about types, object-oriented programming, is both there in Java and TypeScript. So these benefits or this knowledge can easily go between each of the programming languages and tech stacks. Checking some things on the TypeScript docs, if as you start and you want to see how things works, is a great resource. There's plenty of examples out there. There is TypeScript Playground where you can just try things. I believe in my experience, what I did was checking resources whenever I wanted to learn something. So there's plenty of great content out on the web. I'm not sure I would be able to recall a specific one by name. Though, if you're really eager to do so, maybe checking some online courses would be a great way if you want to, let's say, have it start and end well defined. Or like in my case, I learned it as I went through some real projects and I learn it from others, from code reviews. That's the way I got it. So mostly by osmosis, I would say.
Okay, thank you. And what do you think? Should I include the strict null checks at the start when I switching from Java, for example, to TypeScript?
Absolutely, absolutely. Otherwise, you'll be scratching your head a lot. And it's clear. I didn't show here in the editor how it would look like when you have the new check enable on your main build, because the editor will screen out to you, hey, you can't do that, or you better add some checks here for this property accessing here, or this method call, because it might be null or undefined. So certainly, it's a great addition. Of course, each and every project has its own characteristics. Especially, you will need to define your types really well, right? If you define your types that saying that all properties will be there, but in practice, in your real life, right, in real code from the backend service you're consuming, is not the actual case, you may still fall on some traps. But because you are telling TypeScript, hey, this property here will always be there no matter what. But in reality, when you are retrieving it from your backend service, there are certain scenarios when it's not. So strictNullCheck won't be able to solve all your problems. You need to take your time and think about what properties are there and are not to be able to convey and deal with them at writing time, and that will have them check it at runtime.
Okay, thank you. We have the next one question.
Sure.
Can somebody explain one more time why did Alexander make a list of files in tsconfig with that script tool?
Mm-hmm. Gladly. So, Vladislav, the purpose of this custom TypeScript NullCheck config file is to allow you to step by step go throughout your entire project and fix the NullCheck errors, right? So the purpose is, once you fix a file, you include it on the files list in the custom TypeScript file. So that will certainly later, and I didn't mention it before, like this custom compilation of your code, it certainly should be run maybe on every commit of your code. Certainly, and for sure, it should be there on your CI pipeline, run on every time, to guarantee that as your team fixes more and more issues, there won't be regressions or someone trying to get a shortcut or maybe forgetting to fix some errors. So it should be there in front of the team and run every now and then, and more the better. So you ensure that you're not committing to your remote branch a file with some regression, right? And I would suggest that every new file on your project should be included on that list, right? So then you start checking whether that file would be not checked from day one. There's some scenarios when it wouldn't be possible, right? For example, when you create a new file that imports a file which is not yet null fixed. So unless you fix both files, then you would be able to include there. But that's the purpose of the list of files in that TF config file. And the purpose of the tooling is to take this manual work out of use. So it goes there, compile, may take a while, but if I believe the purpose there is to run it at first time and then after some interval to see if there are any other files which should be already there until you get all your files null checked and you can just remove the file.
As I remember, it wasn't a general TS config file. It was a config file just for strict null checks option.
Correct. Yeah, on that file, we are enabling the null emit configuration, which is, as the name implies, it will only compile the code, but won't emit any destination file. So there will be no JavaScript file written to the disk when you run the TypeScript compiler with that custom TypeScript config.
So it's the config like helper for migrating to clear code.
Yeah, you nailed it. Great summary.
I have one more question from my side. Did you try to fix automatically this code with tool like OpenAI or something like that?
Currently on my project, it's all on the client side. So, and on that client, you're not allowed to use any web AI tooling like ChatGPT, for example, to run our code and fix it, right? So I couldn't do that. However, I myself have created similar scenarios using ChatGPT to see how it would recommend me to fix certain scenarios. I did some examples here. So if we're using Copilot, for example, you could leverage it for sure. And yeah, for this type of errors, they are very, let's say, non-business related, right? So you can go to ChatGPT, type an example of the problem that you have in your project code and see how it would provide you a way to fix it. It could be very beneficial. I have done that myself.
And what is the percent of past results?
From ChatGPT, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was using. Sorry, say that again. Your question.
So question is how many results or fixed code are acceptable and works fine with the tool or with based on your experiments.
Right. So I mean the percentage of using ChatGPT or just fixing it?
No, I mean automatically fixing it with ChatGPT or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's really helpful, and many of the problems they repeat every now and then. So we checked 3 types of errors today. There might be more. These are the most common I have dealt with. And yeah, ChatGPT did a great job recommending like, strong and reliable solutions to fix. So most of the time, it gave good recommendations on how to fix that, and they could apply. There is one thing that even ChatGPT doesn't recommend, and I didn't address here, which is there is an operator that's only uh, for TypeScript, which is it's different than the knowledge coalescing or the optional chaining, but it tells TypeScript that tells you, hey, you understand that this can be nullable, but I know what I'm doing, and it's not nullable at runtime. So it goes by this exclamation mark symbol. So if appended there, you will be telling TypeScript that, hey, I know through your type system this may be null, but I know what I am doing, and it won't be. I guarantee you, TypeScript, that it won't be null at runtime. That operator if you use it, go carefully and do not use it for everything, and try to avoid using it. And it can go out of hand. And then rather than fixing code, you will be just, let's say, bypassing it, and the problem will still be there. So use it carefully for some situations when the types, maybe you're dealing with some browser type, for example, an event. I have seen it use it with the event object from UI events, uh, where the data will always be there. So go use it carefully, but if not used properly, it can go out of hand, and then your code base will be as worse or even more worse than it was in the beginning.
So without developer, we can't use it. Just script, make script to run and fix it automatically. It's not possible yet.
Yeah, I didn't study this endeavor. It could be. Certainly, we could try to apply here some abstract syntax tree here to understand when errors are happening, right? For example, the array problem, they certainly can be um, automatically fixed. I'm not sure whether the VS Code also suggests some fixes. Sometimes it does. I didn't specifically check here for today, but yeah, some problems may be auto-corrected, but some may need more in-depth look.
I'm talking about strict null checks. If we are talking
Uh-huh.
about other options, we can do that with ESLint and with probably fix option in the CLI, and
Mhm.
ESLint can fix biggest part of violation in the code.
Right. Yeah, it's really helpful.
So we have comments from
All right.
Sergey, who asked the question. It's comments about I hope useful npm package with enables all strict options, and
All right.
I think
Thanks, Sergey.
Vladislav show like your answer.
Hmm.
So I think that's it for today. Thank you everybody who joined us, and
All right.
don't forget to follow us on YouTube and in Telegram. Thank you, Alex, for the stream, for answers, and for
My pleasure.
interesting topic.
Right. Thank you, Sir Andre, and thanks all for the audience. And looking forward for the next one.
Yeah, have a good day. Bye.
You too all.